up, everybody? Steven here with Neural DSP. And today I want to talk to you about the bass tones used in the latest Artist Tones cover of Black Honey by Thrice. For this cover, I asked Neural DSP artist Matthew Denis to lay down the bass tracks. I asked him to record and come up with tones that would be as similar as possible to Thrice. So I'm actually going to have him break down his thought process behind choosing a bass and the Darkglass Ultra settings.
Hey everybody, Matthew the bass player here. Hope you enjoyed watching our recreation of Thrice's song Black Honey just as much as we enjoyed working on it. I've been a fan of that band since I was a freshman in high school, so first of all, big thank you to Neural DSP for asking me to be involved, as well as to Steven, Alan, and Gerard for lending their considerable talents to the project as well. Whenever you're tracking a song, the first thing that you want to look at is making sure you pick the right tool for the job. So since I didn't have a Gibson Grabber on hand, I ended up using a vintage style P-bass. And while it's obviously not going to sound exactly the same as a Gibson Grabber is going to, both basses still have that single pickup and that kind of classic middle sweet spot position. So it's going to get you a much more similar tone than using a more modern bass with dual humbuckers that'll naturally give you that kind of scoop response that you get from the phase cancellation between the two pickups. That being said, if the only bass you have on hand is a jazz bass or a more modern dual humbucker equipped bass, you can always roll to the neck pickup and solo it to give you a closer tonal starting point. The first thing that I looked at on the pedal was dialing in the right amount of gain for the tone. What I was really going for is that kind of pushed tube amp sound where you get that warmth, the saturation, those tube harmonics, but without going all the way into overdrive or distortion territory. So you're really looking for just a subtle amount of breakup and crunch on the edge of the note attack, but for the overall response of the tone to be smooth and really almost something that you'd consider a clean sound. The other thing that was particularly important to pay attention to is the upper mid-range portion of the tone. Darkglass does a great job at making pedals that cut through a mix really well, but for this particular sound I actually wanted to dial back a good amount of that upper mid-range, as well as cutting the attack on the toggle switch in order to smooth out the response in that area. So that way, with the gain that you've dialed in the previous section, you're still getting that subtle amount of breakup and crunch on the note attack, but the overall response of that gain is smoother and richer sounding instead of clanky or aggressive. From there, I tried a few different microphones and microphone combinations until I found something that approximated what it sounds like to actually sit in a room with a tube amplifier. In this case, I found a multi-mic setup to be particularly useful in getting that kind of sound, as the close mic is going to get you more of the note articulation information, and then the farther away mic is going to get you more of that room sound and ambience, and the two of them together does a really good job at creating a 3D kind of sound field. Hopefully this gave you guys a little bit of insight on what I'm listening for when I dial in a sound for a session, and if you have any questions, feel free to drop a comment below or shoot me a DM on Instagram directly. Thanks for watching.
So let's go ahead and take a look at Matthew's preset real quick. So you can see that for this kind of rock tone, he went with the VDU settings on the Darkglass Ultra with the Dynamic 52A and the Condenser 184 for the impulse responses. So even though Matthew sent me his own preset, I still wanted to use the parallax to take advantage of the compression that the low band affords. So I have my signals split out from the original track, going to bass split 1 and 2. I put Darkglass Ultra and Matthew's preset on split 1, and then parallax with the low band engaged on split 2. Then, to make sure that there were no phase issues between the Parallax and the Darkglass Ultra, I high-passed the Darkglass Ultra tone. So you can already hear that the Parallax low end compression, I maxed the thing out just so I'd have a solid foundation for the low end. Now coming back to the DI track, I actually did a little bit of compression and a little bit of EQ on the DI before it hits the Darkglass Ultra and the parallax. So as we'll see with the compressor, I'm mainly just trying to tame the transients and make the signal a little bit more consistent as it hits the Darkglass Ultra. So you can hear when he starts picking a little bit quicker here, the notes aren't inconsistent, but I do want them to have that same amount of saturation per note. Then I pulled up the EQ just to take out a little bit of that pick attack. My goal when processing the bass was to maintain the original tone that Matthew supplied me. And as a side note, this is one of the best cases for making sure that you get the best source tones available at the start of your recording sessions. When you have great source tones, you really don't have to do much to get them to fit in. So after that, I just have an EQ that's high passing. I have track spacer to make sure that the bass ducks out of the way of the kick and the toms. And then I have another EQ on the main bass bus just to boost about 128 hertz and dip down around 1500 hertz just to make sure that that pick attack doesn't really get too scratchy. Just as a final example of the processing that goes into the mix, we're going to go ahead and compare the bass that I mixed into the track and just the raw preset that Matthew sent me. So you can hear that while the bass tone of the preset sounds great, the low end is sort of inconsistent. And that's one of the reasons why I like to split my bass tone in between the Parallax and the Darkglass Ultra. And one more time, big thanks to Matthew Denis. Links to his socials will be in the description down below. It was really awesome for him to volunteer and to help me out with this cover. Thank you so much for checking out this video. Links to download the stems and the preset are in the description down below. Leave a like, share, subscribe, and hit that bell icon for notifications on when we upload new content to this channel. Comment down below and let me know what you thought of this content and if you want to see more like it on the channel. And as always, I'll see you in the next video.